I came back from a work trip to find my 8-year-old daughter huddled in a corner, her beautiful waist-length hair hacked off in jagged clumps. My mother, father, and sister stood there, scissors in hand, and said it was for her own good. They thought I would cry. They thought I would yell. They were wrong. I did something much, much worse. My daughter's name is Maya. From the moment she was born, I knew she was special. Not just because she was mine, but because there was something about her that radiated light. She had these enormous brown eyes that seemed to take in the whole world with wonder. And from the time she was 2 years old, she had this incredible hair. It grew thick and fast, cascading down her back in waves of deep chestnut brown with hints of gold when the sun hit it. Just right. By the time she was 8, it reached all the way to her waist. That hair was more than just something pretty to look at. It was part of who Maya was. Every Sunday morning, we had our ritual. She would sit on the bathroom counter with her little legs swinging, and I would carefully brush out every tangle from the week. Then, we would decide together how to style it. Sometimes we did a simple braid. Sometimes we got fancy with French braids or a crown braid that wrapped around her head like a halo. Sometimes we left it loose and wild because that was how Maya felt that day. Those Sunday mornings were sacred to us. It was our time together, just the two of us in our little apartment, away from the world. We would talk about everything. She would tell me about school, about the book she was reading, about her dreams of becoming a marine biologist so she could swim with whales. I would tell her about my projects at work, the buildings I was designing, the way you could take something that existed only in your mind and make it real in the world. Maya loved her hair. She took care of it herself during the week, brushing it every night before bed. She kept it in a special silk pillowcase I bought her to prevent tangles. She researched natural oils and treatments online and asked me to buy them for her. At 8 years old, she had this remarkable sense of ownership over her own body, her own choices. I was so proud of that. I am a single mother. Maya's father left when she was 6 months old. He said he wasn't ready to be a parent, that he had made a mistake. I never heard from him again. That was fine with me. I didn't need him. I had my daughter, I had my career, and I had my independence. I worked hard to become a successful architect. I put myself through school while pregnant. I built my career while caring for an infant. By the time Maya was 8, I was a senior architect at a respected firm, and we lived comfortably in a nice apartment in the city. But none of that was good enough for my family. My parents, Robert and Catherine, and my younger sister, Jennifer, live about 30 miles outside the city in the same house I grew up in. It's a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone else's business, and the church is the center of social life. My parents have always been deeply religious, but their faith isn't about love or compassion. It's about rules, about appearances, about control. Growing up, I felt like I was constantly being molded into something I wasn't. My mother picked out my clothes every day until I was 16. She decided how I wore my hair. She monitored what I read, what music I listened to, who I spent time with. My father backed her up on everything, this silent wall of disapproval whenever I questioned anything. And Jennifer, 3 years younger than me, learned early that the way to get approval was to be the perfect daughter they wanted. She embraced every rule, every restriction, and looked down on me for resisting. When I got pregnant at 22, unmarried by a man who left me, they were horrified. Not concerned for me, not supportive, horrified at what people would think. My mother actually suggested I give the baby up for adoption to avoid the shame. My father stopped speaking to me for 3 months. Jennifer told me I had ruined my life and embarrassed the family. But I kept my baby. I moved to the city. I built my life. And for 6 years, I kept them at a distance. We saw each other on major holidays. I endured their comments and their judgment for a few hours, then went back to my real life. The comments about Maya started when she was about 5. Her hair was already long then, past her shoulders. My mother said it looked wild, that I should cut it into a nice, neat bob. I said no. It was Maya's hair, and she liked it long. My father said I was raising her to be vain. Jennifer said long hair on little girls was inappropriate, that it attracted the wrong kind of attention. I was disgusted by that comment, but I didn't engage. I just started limiting our visits even more. As Maya got older and her hair got longer, their comments got worse. My mother said it was unchristian for a child to have such pride in her appearance. She quoted Bible verses about modesty and vanity. My father said Maya would never be taken seriously with hair like that. She looked like a wild thing. Jennifer, who had recently married a youth pastor and become even more insufferable, said I was setting Maya up for a lifetime of sin and worldliness. I ignored all of it. I built walls between my family and my daughter. I screened their calls. I made excuses to skip visits. For 2 years, we barely saw them at all. It was peaceful. Then, 3 months ago, I had an emergency at work. I had been overseeing the design and construction of a new mixed-use building downtown. It was one of my biggest projects, a 15-story structure with retail space on the ground floor and apartments above. We were in the final stages of construction when I got a call on a Wednesday afternoon. There was a problem with the foundation on the east side of the building. One of the contractors had noticed unusual settling. The engineer on site wanted me there immediately to assess the situation. This wasn't something I could hand off to someone else. It was my design, my project, my responsibility. And if there was a structural issue, it needed to be addressed right away. The problem was that the contractor was based 3 states away and had taken our materials to their facility for analysis. I needed to go there in person to review everything and make decisions about how to proceed. It would take at least 2 days, maybe 3. I am a single mother with no backup. Maya's best friend's parents were out of town that week. My usual babysitter was a college student who had gone home for a family emergency. I called every backup option I had. No one was available on such short notice. I was standing in my office, phone in hand, trying not to panic, when my assistant asked if I had any family nearby. I hadn't spoken to my parents in almost 4 months, but they were only 30 miles away. And despite everything, they were family. Surely they could watch their granddaughter for 2 days without causing problems. I called my mother. I explained the situation. I made it very clear that this was an emergency and I had no other options. She said, of course, they would watch Maya, that I should bring her out that evening. She sounded almost pleased, like this was an opportunity she had been waiting for. I should have listened to my instincts. I should have found another way. But I was desperate, and I made a choice I will regret for the rest of my life. That evening, I packed a bag for Maya. I included her special hairbrush, her silk pillowcase, and her favorite hair ties. I drove out to my parents' house with Maya in the back seat, chattering about the 2 days off from school and how she was going to teach Grandma to make friendship bracelets. When we arrived, my mother, father, and Jennifer were all there waiting. That should have been my second warning. Jennifer doesn't live with my parents. She has her own house with her husband. But there she was, standing in the driveway with her arms crossed and that tight little smile on her face. I brought Maya inside and set down her bag. Then I laid down the rules. I spoke calmly but firmly. I said Maya was to stick to her normal routine. Bedtime at 8:30, healthy meals, no excessive junk food. I said she had homework in her bag that needed to be completed. And then I said the most important thing. I looked at all 3 of them and said that no one was to touch Maya's hair. Not to cut it, not to trim it, not even to suggest that it needed cutting. I said her hair was her own and that I expected them to respect that. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. My father grunted something noncommittal. Jennifer just kept smiling that smile. But they all nodded. They said they understood. I kissed Maya goodbye. She hugged me tight and told me she loved me. I told her I would call her every night before bed and that I would be back in 2 days. She waved at me from the porch as I drove away. I called her that first night at 8. She sounded fine. She told me she had helped Grandma make dinner and that Grandpa had let her watch a nature documentary about dolphins. She said her homework was done. I asked if everything was okay, if anyone had said anything mean to her. She said no, everything was good. I told her I loved her and to sleep tight. The work situation was worse than expected. The foundation issue was significant. I spent all of the next day in meetings with engineers and contractors, reviewing calculations, discussing options for remediation. We worked late into the night. I was exhausted and stressed, but by the end of the second day, we had a plan. The building would be safe. I could go home. I called Maya that second night, but my mother answered and said she was already asleep. I said that was fine, that I would be back tomorrow afternoon to pick her up. My mother said goodbye and hung up quickly. Something about her tone bothered me, but I was too tired to analyze it. I left early the next morning and drove straight back. The drive took about 6 hours with traffic. I pulled up to my parents' house around 3 in the afternoon. The front door was unlocked. I walked inside, calling for Maya. The house was too quiet. No television playing, no sounds of conversation. I walked through the living room into the kitchen. No one was there. I called for my mother. No answer. I went upstairs. I found Maya in the guest bedroom where she had been sleeping. She was curled up in the corner between the bed and the wall. Her knees pulled up to her chest, her face buried in her arms. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. Then, she lifted her head and looked at me. Her hair was gone. Not neatly cut by a professional. Hacked off in jagged, uneven chunks. Some parts were only an inch long. Other parts were longer, sticking out at odd angles. I could see scratches on her scalp, red and raw. The floor around her was covered in long strands of chestnut hair, the hair that had taken 8 years to grow. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me with those huge brown eyes, and there was something in them I had never seen before. Fear. Not of me, but fear that had been put there by someone. I heard footsteps on the stairs. I stood up and walked out of the room, pulling the door partly closed behind me. My mother, father, and Jennifer were coming up the stairs. My mother was still holding a pair of scissors. I looked at them. I looked at the scissors. I looked back toward the room where my daughter was huddled in a corner. And I waited for them to explain. My mother spoke first. She said they had done what was necessary. She said Maya's hair had been a source of vanity and pride, that it was turning her into a vain, worldly child. She said they had prayed about it and decided that cutting off her hair was an act of love, that it would teach her humility. My father nodded along. He said I had been raising Maya wrong, that she needed discipline and structure, that her hair was a symbol of my permissive, modern parenting. He said they had done me a favor. Jennifer actually looked pleased with herself. She said Maya had cried and fought them, but that was just proof that she had been too attached to her appearance. She said they had held her still in a chair in the bathroom and cut off all that sinful hair. She said Maya would thank them someday. I stood there and listened to all of it. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't scream or throw things or collapse on the floor. Something inside me went very, very cold. Before we go on, make sure to subscribe and like. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if someone hurt your child? It was like ice spreading through my chest, freezing everything it touched. My love for these people, whatever small amount had remained, turned to ice and shattered. What replaced it was something hard and clear and absolutely certain. I walked past them without saying a word. I went into the guest room and quietly packed Maya's things. I picked up as much of her hair from the floor as I could and put it in a plastic bag from the bathroom. Maya watched me silently. When I was done, I held out my hand to her. She took it and stood up. Her hand was shaking. I walked her downstairs. My family followed us, talking the whole time. My mother was saying I was being dramatic. My father was saying I was being disrespectful to them. Jennifer was saying I would understand someday that they had done the right thing. I loaded Maya's bag into the car. I buckled her into her seat. I got into the driver's seat and started the engine. My mother knocked on my window. I didn't roll it down. I put the car in reverse and backed out of the driveway. I drove away. I didn't say a single word to any of them. The drive back to the city was silent. Maya stared out the window. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror every few minutes, trying to gauge how badly she was hurt. Not just her scalp, which I could see was scratched and raw, but her mind, her spirit, the part of her that had been so bright and confident. When we got home, I ran her a warm bath. I helped her wash carefully around the scratches on her scalp. I ordered her favorite dinner from the Thai place down the street. She ate a little bit, but not much. At bedtime, I tucked her in and sat on the edge of her bed. I asked her to tell me what happened. She was quiet for a long time. Then, in a small voice, she told me. She said it happened on the second day I was gone. She had been playing in the backyard when Grandma called her inside. When she came in, Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Jennifer were waiting in the bathroom. There was a chair in the middle of the floor. They told her to sit down. She asked why. Grandma said they were going to fix her hair. Maya said she knew something was wrong. She said no. She tried to leave, but Grandpa grabbed her arms and pushed her down into the chair. Grandma and Jennifer held her shoulders and arms. She struggled. She kicked. She screamed. But they were too strong. Grandma started cutting. Maya said she could feel the scissors cold against her neck, could hear the sound of her hair being cut, could see the long pieces falling to the floor in front of her. She said she cried and begged them to stop. She said she promised she would be good, that she would do anything they wanted if they would just stop. They didn't stop. They cut and cut until her hair was gone. Then they let her go and told her to clean up the mess. She ran to the bedroom and hid. They didn't come after her. She stayed there until I arrived. When Maya finished telling me this, she looked up at me with tears streaming down her face and asked me why they hurt her. She asked me what she had done wrong. I pulled her into my arms and held her tight. I told her she had done nothing wrong. I told her that what they did to her was not okay, that it was not love, that she did not deserve it. I told her that I would keep her safe and that they would never hurt her again. That night, after Maya finally fell asleep, I went into the living room and blocked my parents' number. I blocked Jennifer's number. I blocked them on every form of social media. I sent a single email to my mother. It said that they had assaulted my child and that they were never to contact me or Maya again. If they tried, I would pursue legal action. Then I blocked their emails too. The next day, I took Maya to our pediatrician. The doctor examined her scalp, documented the scratches, and referred us to a therapist who specialized in childhood trauma. I made an appointment for that same week. The therapist's name was Dr. Lisa Chen. She was a kind woman in her 40s with a gentle voice and a calm presence. Over the next several weeks, I brought Maya to see her twice a week. Slowly, carefully, Dr. Chen helped my daughter process what had happened to her. Maya had nightmares. She would wake up screaming that someone was holding her down. I would run to her room and hold her until she calmed down. She became afraid of scissors. She would panic if she saw them, even kitchen scissors. I put them all away in a locked drawer. She also became very quiet. My bright, talkative daughter, who used to fill the apartment with chatter and laughter, barely spoke. She stopped talking about school. She stopped talking about marine biology and whales. She would sit on the couch for hours just staring at nothing. I took time off from work. I stayed home with her. I read to her. I put on her favorite movies. I cooked her favorite foods. I did everything I could think of to help her feel safe again. But nothing seemed to reach her. It was like part of her had gone somewhere deep inside and didn't know how to come back out. Dr. Chen told me this was normal. She said Maya had experienced a profound violation of her body and her trust. She said it would take time for her to heal. She said the best thing I could do was exactly what I was doing, just being present and patient and loving. After about a month, Maya started to come back to herself a little. She started talking more. She smiled once or twice. She asked if we could watch a documentary about sea turtles. These small things felt like enormous victories. Around the 6-week mark, Dr. Chen asked to meet with me alone. She said she needed to give me an official report of her findings. We sat in her office, and she handed me a document. The report was clinical and detailed. It described the physical assault, the psychological impact, the symptoms Maya was exhibiting. Dr. Chen had diagnosed her with post-traumatic stress disorder. The report stated that Maya had been held down against her will by adult family members and had her hair forcibly cut off despite her clear protests and distress. It described this as a form of physical and psychological abuse. It noted the scratches on her scalp as evidence of the force used. It outlined the treatment plan and the expected long-term effects on Maya's mental health. Reading that report, seeing my daughter's trauma laid out in professional, legal language, something shifted inside me. The cold fury that had taken root the day I found her in that corner began to grow. It spread through me like frost creeping across a window, beautiful and deadly. My family had hurt my child. They had held her down and terrorized her and violated her body. And, according to what I had learned from a cousin who still spoke to me, they were not sorry. They were angry at me for cutting them off, angry that I didn't appreciate their discipline. They thought they had been right. I started thinking about justice, not legal justice. I had consulted with a lawyer who told me that while what they did was horrific, it would be difficult to pursue criminal charges. Family court might issue a protective order, but that was about it. The legal system was not going to give me what I needed, so I started thinking about a different kind of justice. I thought about what mattered most to my family. It wasn't love. It wasn't relationships. It was image, reputation, status in their church and their community, and money. My father had spent his entire life building a small construction company. It was moderately successful, but nothing special. He had always dreamed of something bigger, of being important, of being respected. My cousin told me something interesting during one of our phone calls. She mentioned that my father was working on a major business deal. He was in negotiations to merge his company with a large family-owned construction corporation based in the Midwest. This corporation was known for being extremely successful and extremely conservative. They only did business with people who shared their values, family values, Christian values, traditional values. If this deal went through, my father would become wealthy. Not just comfortable, but actually rich. He would also become a part owner in a company with a national reputation. He would finally have the status and respect he had always craved. My mother and Jennifer were apparently already planning how to spend the money and talking about their elevated social position. The deal was nearly finalized. There was just one more step. A formality, really. The CEO of the corporation, a man named Richard Brennan, wanted to have dinner with my father and his family. It was his tradition. Before finalizing any major deal, he liked to break bread with the family to make sure they were the kind of people he wanted to be in business with. The dinner was scheduled for 2 months away at an exclusive restaurant downtown. When my cousin told me this, something clicked into place in my mind. I saw exactly what I needed to do. Over the next month, I prepared carefully. First, I asked Dr. Chen if she would be willing to provide her official report to me in a format that could be shared with others if necessary. She asked why I needed it. I told her I might need to use it to protect Maya from future contact with my family. That was true in a way. She agreed and printed me several copies of the full report, complete with her official letterhead and signature. Next, I took Maya to a professional photographer I knew. I explained the situation and asked if she would be willing to take photographs of Maya's hair as it was now, still in the process of growing out from the assault. The photographer was horrified by what had happened and agreed immediately. She took beautiful, artistic photos of Maya, close-ups that showed the uneven, jagged remains of her hair and the faint scars on her scalp. Wider shots that showed her face, solemn and sad. The photos were tasteful but devastating. I also kept some of the long hair I had collected from my parents' floor. I put it in a clear bag. The contrast between the long, beautiful hair and what was left on Maya's head told the whole story without words. I compiled all of this into a portfolio. The therapist's report, the photographs, a timeline of events written in clear, factual language. I had it professionally bound. It looked official and serious. It was. Then I found out exactly when and where the dinner with Richard Brennan was taking place. My cousin, who was appalled by what my family had done to Maya, was willing to help me. She had overheard my mother talking about the dinner. It was scheduled for a Friday evening at the Ashford Room, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. They had reserved a private dining room. The party would be my parents, Jennifer and her husband, and Richard Brennan and his wife. I made a decision. I talked to Maya about it first. I sat her down and explained that the people who hurt her were about to have something very good happen to them, something that would make them happy and proud. I asked her how she felt about that. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, it wasn't fair. She said they hurt her and they should be sorry, but they weren't sorry. She said she didn't think they should get to be happy when she was still sad. I asked her if she would be willing to go with me to tell some other people what happened to her. I promised her she wouldn't have to see Grandma or Grandpa or Aunt Jennifer up close. I promised she wouldn't have to talk if she didn't want to. I just wanted her there so that people could see her, could see what had been done to her. She thought about it. Then she asked me if doing this would make sure they never hurt her again. I told her yes. She said, okay. The week before the dinner, I took Maya to a professional salon. We met with a stylist who specialized in repairing damaged hair. I showed her photos of what Maya's hair had looked like before and explained what happened. The stylist was wonderful. She talked to Maya directly, asking her what she wanted. Did she want to try to even it out and let it grow back? Did she want to try something completely new? Maya surprised me. She said she wanted it short, really short. She said she wanted a pixie cut, something bold and intentional. She said she didn't want to look like someone who had their hair cut against their will. She wanted to look like someone who chose their hair cut. I was so proud of her in that moment. The stylist cut Maya's hair into a beautiful, edgy pixie cut that framed her face perfectly. When it was done, Maya looked at herself in the mirror for a long time. Then she smiled. It was the first real smile I had seen from her in 2 months. On the night of the dinner, I dressed Maya in a beautiful navy blue dress and matching shoes. I did my own makeup carefully and wore a professional suit. We looked polished and put together. I carried the portfolio in a leather folder. We arrived at the Ashford Room at 7:30. The dinner was scheduled to start at 7. I wanted them to have time to settle in, to start feeling comfortable and celebratory. I asked the host for the private dining room where the Brennan party was located. I told him I was expected. This was a lie, but I said it with such confidence that he didn't question me. He led us through the restaurant to a hallway lined with private rooms. I could hear laughter and conversation coming from behind one of the doors. The host opened it for us. Inside was exactly what I expected. A long table beautifully set with china and crystal. My mother, father, Jennifer, and Jennifer's husband on one side. Across from them, a silver-haired man in his 60s who I recognized from the company website as Richard Brennan, and an elegant woman who must have been his wife. Everyone looked up when the door opened. The laughter stopped. My father went pale. My mother's mouth fell open. Jennifer looked like she had seen a ghost. Richard Brennan stood up politely, looking confused but cordial. He said hello and asked if he could help us. He clearly thought we had the wrong room. I smiled at him. I introduced myself using my full name and professional title. I said I was an architect with Morrison and Clark, a firm I knew he would recognize because they had done work for his company. I introduced Maya as my daughter. Then I said there was something he needed to know before he finalized his business arrangement with my father. My father stood up fast, his chair scraping against the floor. He told me to leave. His voice was loud and angry. My mother was frantically shaking her head. Jennifer looked panicked. Richard Brennan held up his hand. He looked at me seriously and asked what this was about. I kept my voice calm and even. I said that his company was known for its commitment to family values and to treating people, especially children, with dignity and respect. I said that before he entered into a business partnership with my father. He should know how my father and his family actually treat children. I opened the portfolio and placed it on the table in front of him. I explained what he was looking at. The therapist's report documenting the assault on my 8-year-old daughter. The photographs showing the damage, the timeline of events. I told him the story. I spoke clearly and factually. I said that 2 months ago, I left my daughter in the care of my parents and sister for 2 days due to a work emergency. I said that during that time, they held her down against her will, despite her screams and protests, and forcibly cut off all her hair because they considered it vain and unchristian. I said that my daughter suffered scratches on her scalp from the struggle. I said that she was diagnosed with PTSD as a result of this assault. While I spoke, Richard Brennan opened the portfolio. He looked at the photographs. He read portions of the therapist's report. His wife leaned over to look as well. I watched her face change from confusion to shock to disgust. My father tried to interrupt several times. He said I was lying, that I was being vindictive, that they had simply given Maya a haircut. I said nothing to him. I kept my eyes on Richard Brennan. When I finished, there was silence. Richard Brennan slowly closed the portfolio. He looked at my father for a long moment. Then he looked at my mother and Jennifer. Then he looked at Maya, standing quietly beside me in her beautiful dress with her short, intentional haircut. He asked my father if what I had said was true. My father stuttered. He said, "It wasn't like that." He said Maya's hair had been inappropriate and that they were her grandparents and had a right to make decisions about her care. He said I was an overly permissive parent who didn't discipline my child properly. My mother jumped in. She said they had been trying to teach Maya humility. She said it was their Christian duty to correct the vanity I was allowing in my daughter. Jennifer foolishly said that Maya had needed to learn that her appearance didn't matter, that physical beauty was sinful. Richard Brennan listened to all of this. Then he stood up. He picked up the portfolio and handed it to his wife. He looked at my father and said that his company was built on principles of integrity, respect, and the protection of children. He said that what my family had done was not discipline, it was abuse. He said he could not and would not enter into a business relationship with people who would treat a child this way. My father's face went red. He started to argue, his voice getting louder. He said they had spent months on this deal, that everything was agreed upon, that Brennan couldn't back out now. Richard Brennan cut him off. He said the deal was contingent on this dinner. On his assessment of my father's character and family values, he said that assessment was complete. There would be no deal. He apologized to me and to Maya for what we had experienced. Then he and his wife walked out of the private dining room. The silence they left behind was deafening. My father stood there, his hands balled into fists, his face twisted with rage. My mother looked like she might faint. Jennifer was crying. Her husband looked uncomfortable and confused. I took Maya's hand. I looked at my father and said that he had hurt my child to assert his control, to enforce his values, to feel powerful. I said that, in return, I had taken away his dream, his money, and his reputation. I said, we were even now. Then Maya and I walked out. We walked through the restaurant, out the front door, and to my car. I buckled her in. I got into the driver's seat. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From the release of 2 months of cold, focused rage. Maya reached forward from the back seat and squeezed my shoulder. I looked at her in the rearview mirror. She gave me a small smile. I smiled back. We drove home in silence, but it was a different kind of silence than before. It was peaceful. In the days that followed, the full impact of what I had done became clear. My cousin called to tell me that the deal was completely dead. Richard Brennan's company released a statement saying they had decided not to move forward with the merger due to irreconcilable differences in values. In the small business community my father operated in, word spread quickly about why the deal had fallen apart. People talk. My father's reputation was destroyed. Several of his long-term clients quietly ended their contracts with him. His business, which had been thriving on the momentum of the expected merger, began to struggle. Within a month, he had to lay off half his staff. My mother and Jennifer became pariahs in their church community. It turned out that even in their conservative, traditional circles, holding down a screaming child and forcibly cutting off her hair was considered beyond the pale. People stopped inviting them to events. They were asked to step down from their volunteer positions. I know all of this because my cousin kept me updated. She thought I deserved to know. I listened to her reports with a sense of calm satisfaction. I had set out to destroy their financial future and their social standing, and I had succeeded completely. Some people might say I went too far. They might say that revenge is wrong, that I should have taken the high road, that I should have just cut them off and moved on with my life. But those people didn't see my daughter huddled in a corner, holding pieces of her hair. Those people didn't watch their child wake up screaming every night for weeks. Those people didn't have to help their child learn to trust the world again after the people who were supposed to love her violated her in the most personal way. My family didn't just cut Maya's hair. They held her down while she screamed. They traumatized her. They taught her that the people who claim to love you can hurt you and believe they are right to do it. They took away her sense of safety and her trust. And when confronted, they felt no remorse. They thought they had done a good thing. So, yes, I destroyed them. I took away what they valued most. Their money, their status, their reputation. I did it carefully and methodically and without mercy. And I don't feel bad about it. Maya is doing much better now. It has been 4 months since that night in my parents' house. She still sees Dr. Chen once a week, but the nightmares have mostly stopped. She talks and laughs again. She told me last week that she wants to grow her hair out again, but this time she might donate it to a charity that makes wigs for kids with cancer. She said she wants something good to come from what happened to her. Her hair is growing back healthy and strong. It's about 3 inches long now, still in that pixie cut that makes her look confident and beautiful. She gets compliments on it all the time. She tells people she chose this haircut herself, and there's pride in her voice when she says it. We still have our Sunday morning ritual. Now, instead of braiding her hair, we do other things. Sometimes we paint our nails. Sometimes we do face masks. Sometimes we just sit together and read. The ritual was never really about the hair. It was about the time together, the closeness, the trust. We still have that. As for my family, I have had no contact with them since that night at the restaurant. They tried calling and texting from other people's phones, but I blocked those numbers too. My mother sent a letter that I returned unopened. Jennifer showed up at my apartment building once, but the doorman sent her away at my request. They are gone from our lives completely. I don't hate them. Hate is too active an emotion, and it requires too much energy. I feel nothing for them at all. They are simply people who used to be in my life and now are not. They made their choices. They hurt my child. I made mine. I hurt them back in the way that would matter most. People have asked me if I think what I did was justice or revenge. I think it was both. Justice is about balance, about making things right. They hurt my child, so I hurt them. They took something precious from her, so I took something precious from them. The scales are balanced now. But it was also revenge, and I'm not ashamed of that. Revenge gets a bad reputation. People say it's petty, that it doesn't solve anything, that you should be the bigger person. But sometimes, being the bigger person just means letting people get away with hurting you and yours. Sometimes, revenge is the only way to show someone that there are consequences for their actions. Sometimes revenge is necessary. I planned it carefully. I waited for the right moment. I struck precisely where it would hurt most. And it worked. My family learned that they could not hurt my child without facing severe consequences. They learned that I am not someone to be controlled or dismissed. They learned that actions have consequences. More importantly, Maya learned something too. She learned that when someone hurts you, even someone in your own family, you don't have to just accept it. You don't have to pretend it's okay or make excuses for them. You can stand up for yourself. You can fight back. You can demand justice. And sometimes you can win. I look at my daughter now, at her bright eyes and her growing confidence, at the way she holds her head high and speaks up for herself. And I know I made the right choice. I protected her. I avenged her. I taught her that she matters, that her body is her own, that no one has the right to violate her, no matter what justification they claim. That lesson is worth more than any relationship with my family could ever be. It's worth the anger and the gossip and the judgment from people who think I should have handled things differently. It's worth everything. So, yes, my parents and sister held down my daughter and chopped off her hair. They thought I would just get angry. They thought I would yell and cry and eventually get over it. They thought they could do this to my child and face no real consequences. They were wrong. I didn't just get angry, I got even, and I made sure they would never forget the price of hurting someone I love. I destroyed my family's lives because they destroyed my daughter's spirit. Some people will say it was justice. Some will say it was revenge gone too far. I say it was exactly what they deserved, no more and no less. They made my daughter suffer, so I made them suffer. They took away something she treasured, so I took away something they treasured. That's not cruelty. That's balance. That's fairness. That's a mother protecting her child in the only way that actually mattered. Was it justice? Or was it revenge too far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.